here, Jeff, is the woods of chirps his cries to sing a loose sweet cheery ode and suck him up, the old cant rogue. Group A. You have just, beamed listening through, pig, his halted excerpt from John Whiston's five-axled production, The Coach with the Six Insides, from the tales of yore of the times gone by before there was a hoofed king or a hoofed thing or a ping and a poke in Ireland, all sold. Ghost Story by Eric Wiggs is to become continued in Fearson's Nightly in the Let's All Wake Brickfaced in Lucan. Lirondella, jaunty Lirondella, with Tira Lira Rondinelles at Tantivy we go. Attention, stand at ease. We are now diffusing among our lovers of this sequence, to you, the dew-folded song of the nightingales, Alice, Alice, hello, from their sheltered positions in rose scenery heading on the heather side of Waldallure, Mount St. John's, Ginnyland, whither our allies winged by dusk foil from Moor Park, swift sanctuary seeking after sun-sink gang, oi, bo, hither, zither, almost dotty I must dash, to pour their peace in partial flow, flora, Florence, sweetish sad nightingale, twin toosing willow. Let every sound of a pitch keep still in resonance, gem crow, jackdaw, prime and second with their terce that woe betwides them, now full theorb, now dulcifer, and when we press a pedal soft, pick out and vowelize your name. Mum. You Pergolesi, you Mere Bear, and you Bilhini, and you Smirky Dainty, and more Beethoven. You wake fool and Aryans with all your badge-thumped pianos. We are glucky in our being so far fortunate that, bark and bay duel with man good fox in chimings having ceased to the moment, so allow the clinkers of our nocturne field, night's sweet most heart, their Carmen Sylvae, my quest, my queen. Lou must wade to cool me early, coil me curly, warbler dear. May song it flourish in the underwood, in chorus, long may it flourish in the nut sky, till Thorish, secret hookup. Rogue and our loud brags, that soddy old Samph, how high is Vilvar? To which, yes, he did, Capt, that was the answer. And his shark short trooping its colours, we knows his ventriculence. Which that rang rip-rip-rippling. Bull-balloon. I will shally, thou shalt willy. You wouldn't should as you'd remesmer. I hypnot. 'Tis golden sickles hour. Holy moon priestess, we love our graps of Mr. Lowe's. What's the matter? Pshut! Tabarans comes to fell our fairest. O gee. Salam, carols. Oh, indeed, and we were. And Hoodie Crow was there. I soared from the peach, and Miss Molly showed her pair, too, 1, 2, 3, and away. Wet the bee as to the floweret green de grasses, yellow horse, hematitis, seal our erders. Did you ever see such a way, such a why, eerie wig, airy wagger, even to the extremity of the world? Dingle Dell, the enormous his, our littlest little, we, that long Alancy one. Let's sit on this anthill for our frill-dress talk after this day of making blithe in Vale the heart before our groat supper serves to us Pancho Master, and let Harlequin play peep to mime up all our combination. Wins one is naught, twigs two is nil, tricks trees makes nix, fares fears stoops at nothing. And till Arthur comes again us, and St. Patrick's he's reformed, we'll pose him together a piece apace. Shares in Guinnesses, there's lovely the sight. Surely me, man weepful. Big seat you did hear? And teach him twisters in tongue Irish. That lad may go too. Quicken, aspen, ash, and you, willow broom with oak for you. And move your tail about. Not nice is that, limpet lady. Suppose we try it promisely. Love all. Nay, tell me not tennis. Taunt me threatening. But do now say to Mr. Eustache, Inyan Mingan has to hear. Whose joint is out of jealousy now? Why, heavily bodies evilly bold is. Hopping, gracious, aren't they awful? Oh, burlesque me, what a nerve! How a man's in his armour we nurses know. Wing, wong, welly, pitty, pretty Nelly. Some poddy pit it in. Will any petty pull it out? Call Kitty Kelly, kissy kitty killy Kelly. What a nice old buzzard. But what a neat young gal. Here all the leaves a-lift aloft, full a-leafing, fell a-laughing over Umbrelloni and his parasolieros with their black throne guards from the county shillelagh. Ignorant invincibles, innocents immutant, Ansel Grootfat a load awake is unango named before the bridge of Primrose, and his twi-Esus Baldmans is met the blowy bells near Dandelion. We think it's a gorsed shame, these go on. A lark of lemon ladies, a lurk of orange tawny men. Your back leg wonted, Budclay mister, bester of the boyne. And they leave the most lively of leaf times, and the most folliaginous, till there came the marrer of mirth, and the janged rapper of old jokel arenas. And they were as were they never ere. Yet had they laughter, one on other, unto the end, and enjoyed their laughings, merry was the times, when so granted high Hilarion us may too. Cease praise story walkering around with jester Roman over 'em, he's swinking about as they think and plan on royal what. Back to Droughty, the water of the face has flowed. All of them, the soury guxers, blotty-eyed boys, in that pig's village smoke, a 6-digitarian legion on Druid Circle, the Clan Clam cartel, then pulled out and came off, and Raleigh agreed them, roasted malts with toasted burleys, in condemnation of his totumtation, and for the duration till his repopulation, upon old Noll Crom foremost Ironsides, as Campnabel chieftain. Since, as Salmon tried to explain to someone, seeing that, as he had contracted out of Ireland's empire, he might as coolly have rolled to school call, Tarp and Turboy, a gram purpose, the many-fathom brine groom with the 40-inch bride, out of the Cupton Clancord kettle auction, like the soldier of a britch he was bound to be and become, till the sea got him, while ask, from maker to missus, and what he gave was as a pattern. He, that hon of a hoard, is a Finn, as she, his tent wife, is a lap, at home on a steed, abroad by the fire, to say nothing of him having done what you know how you saw when you heard where you what, the ken speckled Sauka, generous as cock, greedy Gus with Garzelle, uprighter of age and most embracive of yous all, under heaviest corpsus exemption. And who was ever spitter and howsoever's fondling, saving her keepers, that mould the bowl she sold to hold the wine that wakes the barley, the peg in his pantry to hold the heavy ache off his heart. The droll delight of deemsterhood, a wind from the wood to bond, like the bright lamps, the mamahala, year in out year in, auspicably suspectable, but in expectancy of respectableness. From dirty flock bedding, drip-dropping through the ceiling, the 2 sisters of charities on the front steps, and 3 evacuant cleansers at the back gaze, single box and pair of chairs, suspectable, occasionally and alternatively used by husband when having writing to do in connection with equitable druids and friendly or other societies through periods of dire want with comparative plenty, thunderburst, ravishment, dissolution, and providentiality. To a sofa, albeit of horsehair, with a modicum cloth, hired peono still playing off, used by the youngsters for churning out ulstrums, 3 bedrooms upstairs, of which one with fireplace, respectable, with greenhouse in prospect, particularly perspectable. And you, when you kept at Dalby, were you always, for that time only, what we knew how, when we, from that point solely, were you know where? There you are. And why? Why, Hitchcock, he was snapped on the sly, ups-a-daisying Cora's pearls out of the pie, when all the perts in Princess Street set up their tinkers hum, ran that keen of old bards, with them Nunes boys piercing, screaming off their arms' worth. The boss made doves and draves out of his buck nest, while herself wears the bowler's hat in her bath. Deductive Almain Rogers disguides his voice, shetters behind Hoke's chestnut from excessive. heat waves racing. They jest keeps rosing. He jumps, leaps, rising. How long? You known that, Tom? I certainly know. Is their band both ties? Certainly no. Has they been renamed? Certainly no. Does they ought to buy the papal boy when he footles up their suit? He's their mark to foil the flouter, and they certainly owe. He sprit in his fizz, backin'. He salt to their bis, puddin'. He tookled her palum, so column is solemn. And he zooked their friends' leave. Bonny class, her wheel. Guilty, but fellows culpos. It was felt by me sin daid, that submerged, dodoti, double-faced, told waterside labourers. That since we for at home's health have chanced all that, the wild whips, the wind ships, the wanderlust for world hips, unto their foursquare trust, prayed in aid its plumpty-lump pitcheousness, which, when it turtled around seeking a thud of surf, spake to approach from unheard-of trespass through minx mingled hair. Though I may have hawked it, said, and selled my hot peas after the actress calls from my imprecurious position, and though a chance I could have emptied a pan of backslop down grain by whiles of dodging arrear from the midden privet appurtenance thereof, salving the presence of the board of wumps and pumps, I am ever inculpable, where release of prisoners properly is concerned, of unlifting up fallen girls, where endangered from them in their open out of unadulterous bowery, with those hindering influences from an angel's sexonism. It was merely my barely till their oaths. Miss Saunders stayed. Maggie Guggy's gigag, the code's proof. The ribald danger, with they who would bear whiteness against me, I dismiss him from the mind of good. He can tell such a story to the 12th maligns, that my first was a nursemaid, and her fellow was a will-be perambulatrix. There are 20 to 22 thews and leather mail coat schemes pen-pairing to host-post for it voluntarily, with my valued for favour to the post-puzzles department, with large parcels of presents for future branch offerings. The green approve the raid. Schaumbaum's bode he is a mustering in the groves, while his shule comes merging along. Want I put myself in their curtleys, I were a yearn to leap with them, and show me too by sextime. Dear, and lest I forget mergers, and bow to you low marchers. Attention! What amazing month of buds and misses they are making, so wingty wish to flit before their kin. Attention! Ears to ears. The skull of a Gaul, for every dime he opens that mo mouth you could park your Ford in it. Who has paper-treated him into captivities with his inside man by a hock sheet of star vision for an avragette a piece of parchment, cooking up his lenses to be my apocalypst, the recruiter of his conscriptions. Let him be a servant to Kinahan. For peace, peace, perfect peace, I have abwaited me in a water of Ailin, and I have placed my reeds in Tectis before the Regius Tower of the perception of tribute in the hall of the city of Ainalby. How concerns any merry aunt, and whosoever grave sobbers, it is parent sempre's sex of fun to help a dazzle off the other. What for Musias and Gracias may the Dublin rape the handsomest, and the whole mad nightmare's nest, ton, pother, prison and plotch. If why shouldn't somewhat, well, I am able to owe it, hearth and chimney easy. They seek her for Van Flowem, all Worden's merkins. I'll eager make list torpedo ponder arkens. That's that. And if my legitimate was well to rend tig-tag cackling about it, like the Sally bird she is to Abraham in the cutie strict, I shall call upon my first among my lost of lyras, beyond a jingu bangoist, to overcast her, dismissing Munda Manu all the riflings of her victuum gleaner, my old chuck, she drakes me druck, turning out gay at 90, and well shoving off a Boston mess like Lot's wives does over her hand-picked husband, as she would be calling, well, for further oil miracles upon all her wayfarer gods, and re-announcing my deviltries, as was I a locally person of caves until I got my purchase on her firm for hold, I am, I like to think, by their sacrilegion of Damond cap Damond, confessedly in my barren gentilhomme to the manure born till ladiest day as Panthopossifer, to have split for grunt a peer of bellows like Baculus shakes a rousing guttural at any old serpane time by peaching, all soul we are not a musical, the worry worst against myself in the defile as a liberatus episcopal of these mispetiites of the first virginial water, who, without an auction of biasement from my part, with gladdest tone are quickest in it, over how and under where the totty lotty poppy flossy conny dolly Mawkins. Though I heave a cold on my back, and am cood up to my ears, hoven same times I used all tides to be a swarmer for the meek stand the graced. You are not going to not. You might be three abreasted, whole-nosing at a wall hoarding from our Donamere and ent vilayets prostitution, precisingly Kushka's tariffs, and it could be double-densed on countless hour of all bleakest age, with a bad of wind and a baran of rain, non-pos mentis like Novus Elector, what with his marks and their groups, yet did a doubt, should a dare, were to you, you would do and damp me, shenker dump you, skunk, and fare with me to share with me, hinter and donter, hunt by hunt, by where davening shedders down whose rovely leg, as yours were and as ye's is. Sure and you would, Mr. McGurk, be sure and you would, Mr. O'Dwayne, to be sure and you would so, Mr. McGilligan. Would you nods? Mum. No mum has the rod to put a stop to the lurch of emotion. My little love apprentices, my dears, the Estelles, van Nessis, van Nixis, wonderpool, which I had a real devotes for, yet was it Marley Lois, or just a field with these, which older man KK always welly, he is showing off the full nights, for my palm spread was gapped were parsley sprig, the curliest weedeen old ocean coils around, so spruce a spice for salt horse sonnies, and as tear to the thrusty as Taylor's spring, when after borns, when she was looked like a little shea chilled, oh sword, ah ma, by my tide impressing, as Beecher saith, and all the colories fair fled from my faulted cheeks. Pop-ups, where you conceal me, you mayst first gauge my bride. Wicked gapers, I appeal against the light, an existence of vividence. Panto boys is on a looser in-lot, ballet girls supplin thrown tight. I have wanted to thank you such a long time, so much now. Thank you. Sir, kindest of bottle holders and very dear friend, among our hearts of steel, for aught I know it will before you, me dare beautiful young soldier, winninger, nor any of your rudimental muscats, before you go to mass. You who have watched your share with your sockbull sodalists on your bunthead nogs at our love tennis squats regates, suck pump, when on with the balls did deserve the fame, my gold rush gainst her silver nets, to say, begid, for the love of goddess and Pertha now as you reveres your one mother's mitch for match, and while I reveal thus my deep-seeped daughter, which was born up pridely out of Med's dreams unclouded, when I was pillowing in my brine, of Saturday Eve, how now, warn't we? To see, I say, ho, in stay of execution, in re Milcho Melachmans, incriminated. Won't you feel, odd rabbit, upon every strong ground you have ever taken up by bitter stiff work or batten staff play, with assault of Turk against a barracravel of Greek shoots, e'en though Jambul's difficulties is Terry Shimmy Rag's opportunity, if that is grace for the grass, what is balm for the bramblers. As it is, that I am the charismatic old ruffin, supposedly improctor to be seducent trovatellers, the dire daffy dame deaconesses, like wise sighs the soothie singer, the lilith soft I felt, and when boo-boo brutals and cautiouses only aims at the og-og-hogs in the human, then houts blimey and toronation, up curts and scotch'em, I'll tall tell croon pay securers, so will nuggets and nippers, that thash on me stumpin' blows the gaff off my ambition, and thit tides or mars makes a good dale to be shot at. False stuff. He's wrote in air aft deaf was, and dong wong magunty till the bombed him of the war, thrushed in his whole sort of close. Wish to wood in weald, bays of Borshaw binding. The desire of Miriam is the despair of Marion, as Joseph's beauty is Jack Jacob's grief. Brow, tell none, eye, feign sad, mouth, sing mim. Look at Lockman, what between the cup girls and the platter boys, and he grew back into his grocery baseness, and for all his grand remonstrance, and there you are. Here endeth Cincinnatibus with half-speak finish, with a hague for a halt on a pounce-foot pants. Pink, please pink, to please pink, how to please pink. Punk. Mask 1, mask 2, mask 3, mask 4. Up. Look about you, Tutty Common. Remember and recall, Collycegg. When visiting Dan Leary, try the corner house for tea. I'd give ye credit for Simmons more if you'd be limping. Our 4 avunculists. And since 3-story sorrow-telling was much too many, they maddened, and they morged, and they lunged, and they jowled, synopticked on the word, till the Duke done it. Down. Like Deucolion, the seagoer, when he bore down in his perry-boat, he had raised a slide and shipped his orders and seized his pullets and primed their plumages, the finling and dovelet, the dun and the fire, and sending them one by other to fair forfawn, he had behold the residuance of a delugion. The foggy does, still going strong, the old thalassocrats of invincible empors, maskers of the water world, facing one way to another way, and this way on that way, from several their 4 dimensions. Where the lining leaps from the numbulus, where cooled by cold bride lieth languid, the bounds wherein born are solid bodies all at home that hain a rest. A point, that's all. But see what follows. Ringlings upon wronglings among incomputables about an uncomeoutable, an angel prophetess, King Coria of beheasts, the caliph in his halif skin, that eerie winging one, and the void's bubbly vodis dodos across the which the boomer mouths from their dupus dupes were in envy and anonymously blowing great. Guns. Keep backwards, please, because there was no good to Gundy running up again. Guns. And it was written up in big capital guns, saying never underupt great-grand Gosterfosters. Guns. And whatever one did, they said, the forlings, that on no accounts you were not to. Guns. Not to pad them behaunt in the field. Not to go tonner water and bungly well shoot the rising giant. Not to only be walking around Jerusalem do at small hours about the market-plots, smelling oaky bony, this little figgy and aracky bellicky, this little pink into porker, but porco dirto, to let the gentleman pedesteroles out of the Mona Bella culpuration live his own left leave, culle buone, by purpur usual of the pet publicities, without invoking his also between, sick, the aracky bone and, sook, the oaky belloc. And not to not be always hemmer and hummer, treeing themselves up with one exite, but not to never be caving nicely, precisely, quicely, robustly, tenderly, unremarkably, forsakenly, haltedly, reputedly, firstly, somewhatly, yes, I knowly, about the back exits. Never to weaken up in place of the broths, never to fall asleep in the place of the boots. And other things, never to wait the sourdines if they weren't having anything on their conscience. And when in some schloss, to never knocks, cease till the finally ending was consummated by the completion of accomplishment. And thus, within the tavern's secret booth, the wise height ones who sip the tested sooth bestir them as the justas bid to jab the punch of quorum on the mug of truth. Casey jowls, they're sudden in the secret. Casey jowls, they sure are wise. Casey jowls, the deuces as jobbers, for they'll find another faller if their roost won't rise. Coolly the hooper. There is to see. Squarish large face with the atlas jacket. Bright's browny eyes in blue satin shoeings, peaky-booky nose over a Lousiani shirt, rocky stackled hair besides a straw camel belt, namely, Gregorovich, Leonokopoulos, Tarpinacci, and Dougal. And was they stare all the time? Yea, but they was. And during the games, enduring the studies, undaring the stories and all? Ned? Only snugged then and cozied after one percepted naught, while tough battle outraged the waywards and mean signs of their hinterhand supplies demands. And be they gone to splain splication? That host that hast one on the hoose when back turns, when he face fronts, none in the house, his jest has guessed. You bet they is, and knows well done. With, however, what sublation of compensation in the ratification of interpretation by the byboys, being they Mr. G.B.W. Ashburn, St. Bruno's Toboggan Drive, Mr. Fakesgood, Bell Chambers, Carol Ann Crescent, Mr. I. Chataway, Hilly Gate, Poplar Park, Mr. Q.P. Dieudonné, The View, Gazy Pier, Mr. T.T. Archdeacon, Multiple Lodge, GFXP Road, Mr. W.K. Ferris Fender, Fort, Wooville Doon Bottom, on to whom adding the tout that pumped the stout, that linked the lank, that cold the sandy, that next doored the rotter, that rooked the rhymer, that lapped at the hoose, that jokes pilled. They had heard, or had heard said, or had heard said written, fidelly said, that there first a Roderick King comed to an inn court, and the sight of that yard was a perchy pole with a luva-gluva on it. Last monarchs maketh man, when one shift winneth woman's. So how would it hum, ho son of a witch, if some of as was to start to stump the story on? So many needles to ponk out to as many noodles as our company, they noddling all about it, tutti to tempo, decumans numbered 2. Eh? Well, that's the secretary bird, better known as Pandora or Paula Bucker, whom they thought was more like a solicitor general, indiscriminatingly made belief mid author sagastians from Shelm the Pellman to write some words to senders about her chilikin puck, laughing that Poolbeck would be the death of her. Be that, well, that Majesty, the postulate auditressee, when her dare modes agronian, is always on the who goes where, hoping to Michael for the latter to turn up with a capital tea before her funeral comes off without any much farther, which is parting parcel of the same goomeral's post-stoppage, it being look-wise on the whence blows weather helping Michael, so that the loiter end of that leader may twaddle out after a cubital lull with a hope soon to hear, comprehend? See, becakes the goat's man on question, or whatever the hen the bumbler was, feeling not up to scratch, bekicks of whatever the kidding's pain, inge, and popper meant for him, though I once started through love, through grieving, through danger, as a nurse person to his minstrels, divorced the pair of them Mather Carey's chucklings, pant blanche, and skittered his litters like the Cavalieri man in Cobra Park, for ungaborn Yankelmen, Jeremy Trubus, or Kevin O'Keepers, any old how and any old then and when around Dick's dirty Duncan, remarking scenically with laddie-like lassitude upon what he finally postscript. D, after it's so long till I thanked you about, I do so much now, thank you so very much as you introduced me to folks. E, will these remind to be same? F, fool step, alethiometry, or just zoot doon floon? Nut it out, PBI, on a massive mancinez. But, top, you were in the same boat of yourselves, too, get a bod off or cream pleasure in, and you receptionated the most delicious of millets, which it all flow o'ered your droop in Dunleary's, but dribble a drop went down your rot hole. Meaning Kelly, Grimes, Phelan, Mullaney, O'Brien, McAllister, Seeley, Coyle, Hines, Joins, Naylor, Trainer, Coursey to Coursey, and Gilligan Gall. Stunner of odds, Tods, on blue bleeding boar horse, What Sorson's head surprises thus to south of Rumpumplican Oak, with, well, we cannot say whom we are looking like through his now-face. It is of noggins, whilk dusts the both sides of the seats of the big slaps of the bog chaps of the Polar Bar of the Maringar of the Lochlan Gonlan Lodder of the Fief of the Fof of Forfum Shiplazoid. Bounce! It is Polly Signs Stunter, the Sackerson boy, to pump the fire of the lewd into those salts of botchies, half sows, dovers, till fell they dead war nootwindick. And whale time he was rancing their smutsy floskins, gnawed undery collared for their poopishes, a hull on 'em, fear a main nooter en now. Shatten up ship, vow wow ounce. No more Clandoilskins chicken levers, all assured for Catholic gizzards, stole away their gluttony of stanks, porter filius and spirituous songsters, oom, oom. As these vitupertards in his bosom he did stranglehold, bush brows, knobbly nape, swingly swangler, sunken trunk, that from tin of this clocken had it runst slap out his slop. For him had heard from far the piping, as of Durducci was a Siegelson. He cooed that loud nor he was young. He cud bad corn nor he was grey, like water parted from the sea. Ostia, lift at it, Ostia, from the sea, away from the sea. Him. Here hasting he himmed, re-remembered all the chubs, chips, chaffs, chuckin' pox and chainy chime bells that he had misdistributed in port pub, park, pantry and poultry house, while they, there, the others that are, were most emulously concerned to capturing the last drops of summer down through their grooves of blarneying, ere the Saxon locked at the door, which he would, shut and sure, and lay them to stour. For be all rules of sport, 'tis right that youth be dour to charm the night, whilst age is dumped to mind the day, when water parted from the sea. The humming, it's coming, in's way, on's way. Fingur McKishmard o Bisum Burgess Benefice. He was bowing him and scraping him in recalcitrantament to the right about. And these pro bono publicos clamatizing for an extinction on his hostelry, with his charge hand-bombing their ears. "'Tis gen'man, plays, she been going shooter off all me nooter unawares. You hear Nort Farwellen's rouster? A shuffle the wave they. From Dancing Tree till Sutton Stone, there's lads no lie would filch a crown, to mull their sack and brew their tea, with water parted from the sea. The long-awaned who's a silver-born en routed to Rochelle Lane and Liberties, those Mullingar minstrels as our marshals sing, par Tune-Piped Road, under where, perked on Holloway Hill, that poor man of Lyons, good Duke Weltington, hug on come errandwards, had here come to the bells bows, and been cut-a-trapped by the mousers. Now is it town again, Londmere of Dublin, and, of course, the Tuller, blessed the daughter of his eyes with her, moke the once, why do we aim alike a pose of porter pieced, while the dummy shoots the shopper rope, and they all pour forth. Sans Botley, Toppeter Sawyer, the Rouged and Generand, a Bartler of the Boyne, still our Benjamin Leafest, sometime frankling to this city, whereas begrented him appears half sub-porters for his arms, Josiah Pipkin, Amos Love, Raoul Lefebvre, Blaise Tabuteau, Jeremy Yop, Francis de Loomis, Hardy Smith, and Sequin Pettit, followed by the snug saloon shannon of our Café Béranger, the scenic tutors. Because they wanted to get out by the goatway afore the sheep was loosed, for to wish the Wobbleton Whiteleg Welshes, Cayley, Kelly, Keckle, and save back the brown Hazelwood from all the Dinnistoolans on the labious banks of their swen-sown snow-wesner, turned again wisting home by Danesbury Common, and they wonly, duly, truly, fairly, after rainy, draining founty buckets, chalk 'em up empty, till they caught the wind abroad, alley loafers passing jeering, all the rockers on the roads and all the boots in the streets. Oh, dear, ahoy! Last ye, Lundsmen, hasty hosty, for an inundation of mirification and the lutification of our polluted nation. His bludgeon's brook, his drum is tore, for spuds we'll keep the hat he wore, and roll in clover on his clay, by water parted from the sea. Hooray! Free rogue mount on till due mild well to carry on and glory, are now met by brown a boy winning winds former for a lynching parting of his burgaboo, the Shanavan Vacht. Rant and roar and batter his dorans, and that whistling thief O'Ryan O'Ran, with a catch of her cunning like and nowhere a keener. The Forioldos were absolutely at their wet's end in the mailing waters, trying to hide, seek, because number 1 lived at Bothersby North, and he was trying to hide, seek, and number 2 digged up Poor's Court Soother, trying to hide, seek, and number 3 he slept with Lily Teckles at the Eats, and he was trying to hide, seek, and the last with the sailor Lloyd Dongy, he was birthed on the moor bore to the west, and they were all trying to, and baffling with the Walters of, whomsy doomsy Walters of, high, sink, high, oh high, sink, waves. The gangsters strain and angers up as Hoisty rears the cannon cup to speed the buggers bark away, or water parted from the sea. Horcus chief esteblinuncy, he shook be ashamed of himself, hiding that sheep in his goat, and for rassembling so barefells the McGreedy Prince of Roger. For fud. High hose, our kingdom from an horse, Bruni Lano's woolies on Branny Lonnie's hairy parts, and the hunk in his trunk, it would be an insult foul the matter of that cellaring to a pig's trough. Stop his laces. Ink him. You would think him all Dublin staking his lord, sure, like a gourd on puncheon. Divinity divined. Whole hunting the park on a methodological mission whenever there's imbarillas, and calling Rena Rona Rainet Ronaine, to what mine answer is a lemons. Arderlies, beadles, and post-billers heard him. 3 points to 1. Ericus Vericus corrupted into ware eggs. Dummy up distillery. Glory aboo. Run him a John's Gate down James's Lane. Begetting a wife which became his niece by pouring her young things into skin ties. That was when he had dizzy spells, till Gladstool's pillows made him right as the mall. Thanks to his Hudo-brass beard, Loden broke the long man. Now he conceals under various persons, but is always that rock relic. On consideration for the musicas, he ought to have done it. Pass out your cheeks, why don't you? Penalty, please. There you'll know how Warder barded the bullhead that passed our alley. We just are upside down, singing whatever the Dimkins mummer alla lilty she pulls in or out heads. This is not the end of this, by no manners means. When you've bled till your bone it crops out in your flesh, to tell how your mead of mard is made of. All old Daggerson's dodges, one conning, one's copying, and that's what Wonderland's wonder lad'll flaunt to the fair. A trance-done boy's script with titty-bits by. Ahem. You'll read it tomorrow, marn, when the curd's on the table. A nig for a nog and a threat for a throat. The auditor learns, still pumping on Torquin-White Radlump's lengths. In preplays to anonymes left-hinted palinode, obviously in spite-ebbed by a subspecious connection. Note the notes of admiration. See the signs of suspicion. Count the hemisemicolons. Scream our caps and invented commas, quite punt lost, forced to fart. The pipette will say anything at all for a change. And you know what a glove means in the murderous dueluct. Fewer to feud and rampant caloticism, a fugle for the gleeman and save, sit and sow, and the pants outsized on the Doherty's duckboard pointing to peace at home. In sum, law and order on love in ardour. Wait till we hear the boy of Biscop reeling around your postural lector, epistle made thymology for deep Dorothy doutlings. As we'll lay till break of day in the bunk of Bascio. Our island, Rome and duty. Well tried, Buckstiff. Bat in, boot. Sell him a breech contact, the venderer, the by-lawyer. 1 hide, sack, hick. 2 stick holts, lucky. Finish, make gold. First you were nomad, next you were Neymar, now you're Numa, and it's soon you'll be Nomon. Hence, councils ecclesiast. There's every resumption. The forging offals is on the shove to lay you out dossier. Darby's in the yard, planning it on you, plot and edgings, the whispering peeler after cook's wearing an information. The find of his kind, an artist, sir, and dirt cheap at a sovereign a skull. He knows his Finsbury follies backwards, so you batter see to your regent reputation. A scary wind is rifing again about nice boys going native. You know who was wrote about in the Orange Book of S. Chapel? Basil and the 2 other men from King's Eminence. Just press this cold brand against your brow for a mo. Painfully. The sinus, the curse. That's it. Hong Chong Eggly fella now speak he tell numpty wumpty topsoys belong a him pigeon. Secret things other persons placed there covered not. How you fell from story to story like a Sackerson to lie. Enfilmung infirmity. On the because alleging to having a finger of footing in pudding and pie. And here's the witnesses. Glue onto him greavy. Bottom anchor, Noordis. And killy kick for the house that Duke built. Wait till they send you to sleep, scalpow, by jurors' crucis. Then old Hunphy Dunphy Villa'll be blasted to bumboards by the youthful herald who would once you were. He'd be our chosen one in the matter of Britters more than an Arthur. But we'll wake and see. The holes pours riches of ours, hundreds of manhoods and womanhoods. 2 cents, 2 mills, and 2 mills. And it's all us rangers you'll be facing in the box before the 12th correctional, like one nightingale. Between all the Mrs. Mount Sackvilles in their half-moon hemicycles, gasping to giddies to die for the shame. Just hold hard till the one we leapt out gets her gearing. Hired in cameras, extra, with his honour surpacker on the binge. So yelp your guilt and kits the buck. You'll have lots of fame from Wimmy Games fake. Forwards! One bully son growing the goff and his twinger read out by the nasty priors. You fought us how they'd never waxen up, did you, Crockett? It will wecker your ears, that it will. When hives the court to exchequer, 'tis the child which gives the sire away. Good for you, Richmond Rover. Scrum around our side. Let him have another between the spindlers. A grand game. Daily Mount's decisive. Don Gouverneur Buckley's in the Tara Tribune, sporting the insides of a Russian general, and little Mrs. X. Scarus is bribing the half-prices to pray for her widower in his gravest embezzlement. You on her, hosey jiggses, that'll be some non-stop merriment. You in your stolen mason anvil, Magnus, and her borrowed in Barkness circus clothes. Fumba Cummel, with the granine veiled, playing down the slavey touch. Much as she was when the fancy caught her out collecting milestones, espied her a seesaw on a fern. So, Nim, he said, a dat of you. Between Furry Ben and Fairy Bree, in this tier Viclo Vicilo. The smiling ever, if you pulls me over, pay me price. A tailor would adapt his caulking trudgers unto any shape at sea. A dress deceitful of wovens weird, the wonder of the women of the world together, Moya, and the lovablest Lima since Inian, McCormick, McCourt, McConnell, Pockins, McCondred. Only but she is a little width wider got. Be moving a bog. You cannot make a limousine lady out of a hillman minx. Listen till you'll hear the Mudquirt accent. This is a Belgian horses. This is Wallen indulgences. This is a French tick. Scapulars, beads, and a stump of a candle. Hubert was a hunter, chemin de la croise. And Roserette's egg, all the trimmings off the tree that she picked up after the Clontarf water loosed, when O'Brien McBruza bet Norris Knobnut, be cracking his coconut between his knees. Thump, here innkeeper, it's the Dotrines Wednesday morn. Delphin ringing, Gresham undergang, and the real Hibernians stringing strong at knocker. Holy and mass all told. You ought to take a dose of fruit. Jick, sauce. You're getting hoovier, a 12-stone hoovier. Full ends a 12-stone hoovier in your corpus entis, and it scurves you right, damn ye. And as unclish hams they make But nichtia you bound not to loose has gone on Neffin since she clapped her charmer on him at Gormagareen. At the gunting, munting, hunting, punting, the itch is in her blood arra, for a frecklesome, fresh-cheeky, sweet-worded lip squeezer, and he shows how he'll pick him the lock of her fancy. Pogue, and a good jump powell, clean over all their heads. We could kiss him for that one, couldn't we, Huggins? Sparks is the footer to hands off Nancy's, scald head pursue, before you bunkle-doodle down upon your birchen top again after them 3 blows from time, drink, and hurry, the same 3 that nursed you. Skerry bad balls and the grey one. All of your own club, too, with the fistful of burry berries were for the masses for to feed you living and dying. Buy bran biscuits, and you'll never say dog, and be in the finest of company. Morialty, a knife-rope walker, and Rowley the barrel, with longbow of the lie, slick of the trick, and Blenner Castle of the brogue. Clan Rockard forever. The fen, the kin of all fens. Deaf to the winds when for Croona Creena. Fished, and it's not now saying how we are, where who's softing what rushes. Merry Virgin for bed. But of they never eat soul, Frida, they're eating it now. With Easter greeting, Angus, the keeper of the keys of the 7 doors of the Dreamadori in the house of the household of Hickek saith. Whitmore, what more? Give it over, give it up. Magraw, head of a hilo, chest of champignon, eye of a gull. What you defeat? The groom is in the greenhouse, gatling out his gun. That lad's the style for. Lanigan's ball. Now, a drive on the navel, the Shelburne shock. Never mind your gibbous. Slip on your rope and collar and draw the noose bag on your head. Nobody will know or heed you, Posthumus, if you skip round Schleimartin by the back and come front Slough Motorin to beg in one of the shaver's sailor suits. 3 climbs, 3 quick and 3s, and the garb of 9. We'll split to see you mould 'em impervious. A wing for old boy Wellesley Wanderer. Wells, spat witty wagtail. No, pion to Bishop's Fort. Move. There's mumblesome wadding march cranking up to the Hornimunium. Drog us out, Ivy Eve in the Hall of Alum. The finishes of poetry wed music. Feeling the jitters? You'll be as tight as trivet when the knot's knotted on. Now's your never. Pina and Queena are duetting a giggle for gaggle, and the bridine Alana is lost in her dear mind waiting. What a magnificent gesture you will show us this gallus day. Clean and easy be the hooker, and a free for croaks after. Dublin are out for it, so is Rath Thin. And hike, here's the hearse and 4 horses, with the interprovincial crucifixioners throwing lots inside to know who's to be their gosson, and whereas to break the news to Morhock. How our mitred builder his fallen slip, and who will wager but he'll shunny boy be, the flesh lump fleeter from Push to Penga, and all he bears subconscious inklings shadowed on soul skin. It's Segner yours, the strake of a hint. Nup, laying the cloth to 4 of them, and thanking the fish in core of them, to pass the grace for God's sake. Amen. Mr. Justician Matthews, and Mr. Justician Marks, and Mr. Justician Luke de Luke, and Mr. Justinian Johnson, and the ass cart, see, behind. Help, help, hooray! All sup, all sup. 4 ghouls to nail. Cut it down, mates, look slippy. They've got a date with the swimming pool. Dang, ding, dong, dong. Din. Isn't it great? He is swaying above us for his good and ours. Fly your balloons, Dannies and Dennises. His doorknob's dead, and Annie de Lap is free. Once more. We could hate you, Parbuckus, and imbibe through you reassurance in the wild lack of godliness. One fledge, one brood, till Hulm comes everdy birdie. Ha, the throw man! Ha, the trader! Ha, the trough! Arashur, he's the monarch of Araland, over since he heard his name in the thunder. And seen it run up, infuse fire essence on the flash market. Piarsi Aralai Royloi, of the Roll Irish Ratillery, the ludening blue-bordered electrical tram conductor, the unnamed non-Irish blooder that becomes a Green Islander overnight. But we're molting superstituates out of his false thought and guts. Tried mark, Easterlings. Sign, Soideric O'Connoch Ricks. Adverse ord, Magd Morcan Covenhow. There's a great conversion, men. Cuckoos, find his costs. From Moto Methusalem, through Bully and Cowley and Diggory Duck down to business as usual. He's a light there still, by Mike. Loose afore, bung. Bring forth your deed, bang. Till is the right time, bang. Partick Thistle Agginson Megans versus Bristol Palace Agus the Walsall, putch. Time or mortis, 'tis tur bad day. The plague will be soon over, rats. Let's him get on't. All we want is to get peace for possession. We didn't understand why you so sad about 13 to a loafin, sir, kindly repeat. Or leaden us alones of your lung gorge, personifier propound of our edelweist idleworts. Shaw and Shea are learning absent, so hurgle up, grandfather, and gurgle me gurk. You can't impose on frey shouters like us. Every tub here spucks his own fat. Hang coercion everyhow, and smother mock Graham's laws. But we're a-dripping through Gay League all at once. In the beginning is the void, in the muddle is the sound dance, and therein after you're in the unbewised again, von Volsy. You talk o' Dunska's brogue, men, we our soul's speech obstruct hostery. Silence in thought, sprich, where an artful of outer no sense. Popo, wow, more merry 12th, no abroad. That was a good one, huh? So it will be quite a material, what may, father, be enveloped for you, old mighty, when it's ape to Philadelphian in the morning. Aha! Talk of Paddy Bark's echo. Kick knock castle. Muck. And you'll nose it, oh, you'll nose it without warn word from we. We don't know the sender to whom. But you'll find chicken chuggers taking the treacly shortcake with bugle and the bitch pairs a-drawsing and horse mare's procession tighting up under the trees. Stop. Press stop. To press stop. All to press stop. And be the same talking whereabouts hose tancies. That sure is celebrated word. Bing bong. Sac soluta for congestas assaulters prey. Snap it up in the loose. Patch you the blank. Anyone could see you're the son of a gunner. Follow him up too, Carlo. Woes to the worm-quashed, aye, and war to the winner. Think of Arian's wall and the fall of Toss. Give him another for to volley Hollydoodlem. His light's not all out yet, the liver poozer. Boo-hoo-hoo with oos. With 7 whores always in the home of his thinking things, his nod's little dome of his nice little thoughts. 2 Idas, 2 Evas, 2 Nessies, and Ruby-Juby. Fook. No wonder, pipes as curls, that he stinks like a Rheinbock. One bed night, he had the deliriums that they were all queens mobbing him. Fell stiff. He. Medicate yourself. It just gigs our goad. He'll be the death of us, Papa Pop-Up Cuddle, Sam Blind Day Rudder. Your sword, faith, you wall putty o' rother. What we waits be after? Why for we come a gooding? None of you, cock icy. You keep that hen o' yourn and her 40-cantle glim look behind her. We might do with rubbing Elise's. But of all your wanings, send us out your peppy-decked ales, and you'll not be such a bad lot. The rye is well for who's a mind, but the wheateny one is proper lovely. Bank! We sincerely trust that Mrs. with the kiddies of sweet Gortine has not bink to their very least tittles deranged even bonk, and we graciously augur for your meggers a bank bonk to sloop in with all sorts of ad ceteris and ad saturus. It's our last fight, Megantic, fear you will. The refugees took to hailing to time the past. There goes the Black Watch women all in white flack, stop per gat. Right to, Armitage, tem for tam at Timothy Hall. We're being carried away, beyond bournes and bowers. So we'll leave it to Kehoe, Donnelly, and Pycomheim, the three musketeers at the end of this age that had it from Variance Katie Sherritt, Sherritt's man, for the Bonifaces of Blash White and Blush Red of the Aqua Sancta Liffey Patrol to wind up and to tells of all befells after that to mocked majesty in the Malincurd mansion. So you were saying, boys? Anyhow, he what? So anyhow, me lumps and mumpos of the Whoson Commons, after that, to wind up that long-to-be-chronicled get-together Thanksgiving Day at Glenfinnish Laval, the anniversary of his fenced homey communion, after that same barbecue bean feast was all over, poor old hospitable corn and egg factor, King Roderick O'Connor, the paramount chief polemarch and the last pre-electric king of Ireland, who was anything you say yourself between 50-odd and 50-even years of age at the time, after the so-called Last Supper he greatly gave in his umbrageous house of the 100 bottles, with the radio beamer tower and its hangars, chimneys or equilines, or at least he wasn't actually the then last king of all Ireland, for the time being, for the jolly good reason that he was still, such as he was, the eminent king of all Ireland himself, after the last preeminent king of all Ireland. The whilom jokey old top that went before him in the Taran dynasty, King Arth MacMorrow Coffinoff, of the leathered legions, now of parts unknown, God guard his generous comic songbook soul, but put a poached fowl in the poor man's pot before he took to his palliasse with the weeping eczema for better and worse until he went under the grass quilt on us. Nevertheless, the year the sugar was scarce, and we to lather and shave and frizzle him like a bold surging boy, and himself down to 3 cows, that was meat and drink and dogs and washing to him. 'Tis good cause we have to remember it, going through summer sultrings of snow and sleet, with the widow Nolan's goats, and the Brown's girls' neats. Anyhow, wait till I tell you. What did he do? Poor old Roderick O'Connor Rex, the auspicious waterproof monarch of all Ireland, when he found himself all alone by himself in his grand old hand-me-down pile, after all of them had all gone off with themselves to their castles of mud as best they could on footback, owing to the leak of the McCarthy's mare, in extended order, a tree's length from the longest way out, down the switch-backward slither of the Lansdowne route of Horbernia's liveliest vintage on the brain, the unimportant Portalonians with the mouldy Fearbulge, and the 200 Annangoogs and the Ramblers from Clane and all the rest of the not-muchers that he did not care the royal spit out of his ostensible mouth about. Well, what do you think he did, sir, but fix? He just went heel-tapping through the wine spilts and weevily pop-corks that were knee-deep round his own right royal round rollicking toper's table, with his old Roderick Random pull-on hat at a Lanty-Leary cant on him, and Mike Brady's shirt and Green's linnet collar bow, and his Genta's gaunts, and his Macclefield's swash, and his ready-made Rileys, and his pan-Prestoberian poncho, the body you'd pity him. The way the world is, poor he, the heart of Mid-Leinster and the supereminent lord of them all, overwhelmed as he was with black ruin like a sponge out of water, allocutioning in bel cantos to his own Oliverian society Maguine's dreams of Ergan Adams, and throoming through all to himself with diverse tongues through his old tears and his old plays drawl, starkened by the most regal of belches, like a blurny Cashierma crooner, that lurking Clare air, the blackbird's ballad, I've a terrible lot to do, to die, to do, to terrible day, Well, what did he go and do at all? His most exuberant majesty, King Roderick O'Connor, but Araby, damn, but he finalised by lowering his woolly throat with the wonderful midnight thirst was on him, as keen as mustard. He could not tell what he did ail, that bothered he was from head to tail, and wish, leave it, what the Irish boys can do, if he didn't go sliggy magluro reamy round and suck up sure enough like a Trojan, in some particular cases with the assistance of his venerated tongue, whatever surplus rot-gut, sorrow much, was left by the lazy lousers of malt nights and beer churls in the different bottoms of the various different replenquished drinking utensils left there behind them on the premises by that whole hogs-headed firkin family, the departed honourable home-goers and other sly-grogging suburbanites, such as it was, fall about, to the brandishing of his charmed life, as toastified by his cheery condolences, no matter whether it was Chateau-bottled Guinnesses, or Phoenix Brewery stout it was, or John Jameson and Sons, or Rube Cock-Ola, or, for the matter of that, O'Connell's famous old Dublin ale that he wanted like hell, more that halibut oil or Jesuit's tea as a fallback, of several different quantities and qualities amounting in all to, I should say, considerably more than the better part of a gill or naggin of imperial dry and liquid measure, till welcome be from us here, till the rising of the morn, till that hen of Cavan's shows her beak and egg, and Chapel's windows stain our hoary history cold, and Father McMichael stamps for 8 o'clock mess, and the Litvian newest latter is seen, sold and delivered and all set for restart after the silence, like his ancestors to this day after him, that the blazings of their old mouldy gods may attend to them, we pray. Over opposites the Cowrie lad in the corner, and forninst the star gaze of the Catherine candle, that adornment of his album and folken father of familions, he came a crash a cropper sort of a sate on a commendation, and the very boxed in all his compass, whereupon be home the four for cove and trawlers, heave, hone, leave lone, Larry's on the folks, and Farmer Q Baller at the wheel, one to do and one to dare, par by par a peerless pair, ever here and over there, with his fall that he all the do on the floor of his feet, and the fields of the fumes in the wakes of his ears, our wine man from Barley home, he just slumped to throne. So sailed the stout ship Nancy Hand, from Liff away, for Nattenlander, as who has come returned. Farewell, fair Arnold. Good bark, goodbye. Now, follow we out by Starlow. 3 quarks for Muster Mark, sure he hasn't got much of a bark, and sure any he has, it's all beside the mark. But oh, Reneagle Almighty, wouldn't un be a sky of a lark to see that old buzzard whooping about for un shirt in the dark, and he hunting round for un speckled trousers around by Palmerston Park. Ho, 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 Moulty Mark, you're the rummest old rooster ever flopped out of a Noah's Ark. And you think you're cock of the walk? Fowls up, Christy's the spry young spark, that'll tread her and wed her and bed her and red her, without ever winking the tail of a feather. And that's how that chap's going to make his money and mark. Overhoved, shrill glees screaming, that song sang sea swans, the winging ones, sea hawk, seagull, curlew and plover, kestrel and capercaillie. All the birds of the sea they trolled out right bold when they smacked the big cuss of trust and withousold. And there they were, too, when it was dark, whilst the wild caps was circling as slow their ship, the winds as light, upborne the fates, the war-dorse moved, by courtesy of Mr. Doe below, down below Kemper Sally, listening in as hard as they could in Doubledorp, the donker, by the tourney old of the waterfalls, with their Vauxhans, and they came in so hat a jockey, only a quarter-buck a skull for the last act, to the Solons and the sycamores and the wild geese and the gannets and the migratories and the missel thrushes and the auspices and all the birds of the Rugby Sucker Associational Sea, all 4 of them, all sighing and sobbing and listening. Moikel a hoikling. They were the big 4, the 4 master waves of air, and all listening for. There was old Matt Gregory, And then besides old Matt, there was old Marcus Lyons, the four waves, and oftentimes they used to be saying grace together right enough, Boss Navaja, in Miracle Square. Here now we are, the four of us, old Matt Gregory and old Marcus and old Luke Tarpey, the four of us, and sure, thank God, there are no more of us. And sure now, you wouldn't go and forget and leave out the other fellow and old Johnny MacDougall. The four of us, and no more of us. And so now, pass the fish for Christ's sake, amen. The way they used to be saying their grace before fish, repeating itself after the interims of Augustborough for old Lang Syne. And so there they were, with their palms in their hands, like the Pulcrum's procles, spraining their ears, loosening and listening to the oceans of kissing, with their eyes glistening, all the four, when he was kiddling and cuddling and bunny-hugging scrumptious as Colleen Bawn and Dinkum Bell and Oscar's sister, on the 15-inch love seat behind the chieftainess stewardess's cabin, the hero of Gaelic champion, the onliest one of her choice, her blow ideal of a girl's friend, neither big ugly nor small nice, meaning pretty much everything to her then, with his sinister dexterity, light and rouged handling, vicem versum her rag bags et associations, fore and aft, on and off sides, the brew-burnt six-footer, handsome and handsome, that was palpably wrong and bulbably improper, and cuddling her and kissing her, tout-y-fait charmante. In her ensemble of maid and a blue, with an overdress of net tickled with goldies, Isola Misola, and wisping and lisping her about three Solonesans, how one was whips for one was two, and two was lips for one was three, and dissimulating themselves with his pogue, like Aaron a Pogue, the dear, dear annual, they all four remembered, who made the world, and how they used to be at that time in the vulgar ear, cuddling and kiddling her after an oyster supper in Cullen's barn, from under her missel thrush, and kissing and listening in the good old bygone days of Dion Boucicault the elder in Aaron a Pogue, in the other world of the passing of the key of Tutankhamun, with Nush, the carrier of the wood, and with Mesh, the cutter of the reed, in one of the far-back pitch-black centuries, when who made the world, when they knew O'Cleary, the man on the door, when they were all four collegians on the nod, near the Notherlands nursery, white boys and oak boys, peep of Tim boys and piping Tom boys, raising hell while the sun was shining, with their slates and satchels, playing Florian's fables and communic suctions and velica frictions with mixum members in the Queen's Ultonian colleges, along with another fellow, a prime number, Tocius Quocius, and paying a pot of triblutes to Boris O'Brien, the butler of Clump Thump, 2 loaves, 2 turnovers, plus 1 crown, to see the mad Dane ating his vitals. Wolf, wolf, and throwing his tongue in the snake pit. Ah-ho, the ladies have mercy us. It brought the dear prehistoric scenes all back again as fresh as of yore, Matt and Marcus, natural-born lovers of nature, in all her moves and senses. And after that, now there he was, that mouth of mandibles, vowed to pure beauty and his Aaron a Pogue, when she murmurously, after she let a cough, gave her firm order if he wouldn't please mind, for a sings to one, hope a dozen at the best, favourite lyrical national blooms in love illicit, though not too much, reflecting on the situation, drinking in draughts of purest air serene, and revelling in the great outdoors, before the four of them, in the fair fine night, whilst the stars shine bright by she light of he moon, we long to be spoon before her honey old loom, the plaint effect being in point of fact there being in the whole a situation so shocking and scandalous, and now, thank God, there were no more of them, and he, poguing and poguing, like the Morna, bowed his crusted hood, and Tilly the tailor's tugged a tar in the Arctic News' Dag's Dog's number, and there they were, like a four masters in the rolls, listening to Rolando's deep and darblin' Ossian roll. Lady, it was just too gorgeous, that expense of a lovely tint, embellished by the charms of art, and very well conducted and nicely mannered, and all the horrid rudy noises locked up in nasty cubbyhole. As tired as they were, the 3 jolly topers, with their mouths watering, all the 4, the old connubial men of the sea, yambing around with their old pantometer in doxolopics, Luke and Johnny MacDougall, and all wishing for anything at all of the bygone times, the wald times and the fall times, and the empty times and the empty times, for a cup of kindness yet, for 4 far-back tumblerfuls of woman's squash, with them all 4, listening and spraining their ears for the millennium, and all their mouths making water. Johnny. Ah, well, sure, that's the way. Up. And it so happened there was poor Matt Gregory. Up. Their pater familias. And up the others, and now really, and up truly, there were 4 dear old he-ladies, and really they looked awfully pretty and so nice and bespectable. And after that they had their fathom glasses to find out all the fathoms, and their half-a-tall hat, just now like the old Marquis of Powerscough, the old determined despot, quiescence in Braga, only for the extrusion of the salt water, or the auctioneer there dormant in front of the place near O'Cleary's, at the Darkmound number 1, beside that ancient Dane Street, where the statue of Mrs. Dana O'Connell, prostituent behind the Trinity College, that arranges all the auctions of the valuable colleges, Booter's Bay sisters, like the auctioneer Battersby sisters, the promiscuous creators, that sells all the emancipated statues and flower sports. James H. tickled the J.P. off Horgan Green after he made the centuries, going to the Tailturn Horse Show before the angler nomads flood, along with another fellow, active, impulsive, and the shoe blacks and the red shanks and plebeians and the barrancos and the carpenter's children, Jules, everyone got a poxy, with the hawkers on them, high-stepping the Fisher and Fracture lines, 753s up, 357s down, to get out of his way, on as much as their withers conditions could not possibly have been improved upon. Praisers be to DCC, like hopa-lopa cattles, irrumping around their judgety yammon, and all the tercentenary horses and priest-hunters from the Curragh, and confusionaries, and the authorities, Nord-Americans and South African cattle raiders, so they say, all over like a Tiaro del Fuoco, in his grey half-a-tall hat, and his amber necklace, and his crimson harness, and his leathern jib, and his cheap shine hair shirt, and his Scotobrit sash, and his Parapelagian gallow glasses. How do you do, J.P. Elevato, to find out all the improper colleges? And how do you do, Mr. Dame James? Get out of my way. Fork-bearded and blue-toothed and bellied and boneless, from Strathliff and Aylesbury and Northumberland to Anglesey, the whole Yahoo dirt sweepstakings and all the horsepowers. But now, talking of Hayes Danners and walkingology, and how our sea-born isle came into existence, the ex-Pluter, his 3 andesiters, and the 2 Pantalarias, that reminds me about the manosteriums of the poor Marquis of Lyons and poor Johnny, the patrician. And what do you think of the 4 of us? And there they were now, listening right enough, the 4 salt-water widowers, and all they could remember, long, long ago in the olden times, Momonian, thro' darker our sorrows, the Princess Day, when fair Margaret waited sweet Willem, and Lally in the Rain, with the blank prince, now extinct, after the reek of Warman's Noah, the Barmaysides, when my heart knew no care, and after that, then there was the official landing of Lady Jael's casemate, in the year of the flood, 1132 SOS, and the christening of Queen Baltersby, the 4th Buzzersby, according to her Grace the Bishop Senior, off the White Shape, and then there was the drowning of Pharaoh, and all his pedestrians, and they were all completely drowned in the sea, the Red Sea, and then poor Merkin Corningham, the official out of the castle on pension, when he was completely drowned off Aran Isles, at that time, sure knows, in the Red Sea in a lovely morning paper, and thank God, as Salmon said, there were no more of him. And that, now, was how it was. The Arthurian deeps o'er his humbo-dumbo sweeps, and as Widdy the Giddy is reading her memoirs as her Grace's tribute to the grocery trader's monthly. Mind Manned Gone Free by Gladys Rayburn. Run Tables Reincorporated. The New World Presses, where the old conch crews now croons the young. Exeunk thro' Darras, Cram of Clonrock, ye gink guy, kirked into yord. Enterest at a wander weapon, Luftcat revol, fair escapading in his natsert. Tuesday tumbles, and mild Aunt Liza is as loose as her niece. Full fest with him embrace behent, as gent would deem on continent. So mulct per wenches elske wode, ne hath his trysting. Finn, like the Newcasters in their old pliable of Orion devours, Jezzephone and Mirilovis and Nippy she nets best. Fing, aye, Sabos, and so he was, Sabus. Marcus, and after that, not forgetting, there was the Flemish Armada, all scattered and all officially drowned there and then on a lovely morning after the universal flood at about 11:32, was it, off the coast of Coming Home, and St. Patrick the Anabaptist, and St. Kevin the Lacustrian, with too much of tolls and lottens of beggars, after converting Porter Scout and Donner, our first merents, and Napoleon the Equestrian, on his white horse of Hanover, rising Clonthorf over Cabin Horgan, and all they remembered. And then there was the Frankish flute of Noah's Daubers from Hidalgo land, round about the freebutter year of Notre Dame, 1132 PPO or so, disunbunking from under Motham General Bonabosh, no poopery, in his half a grey traditional hat, alla voila come alla villa. And after that, there he was, so terrestrial, like a nail scissor, poking her scandalous and very wrong, the maid, in single combat under the sycamores, amid the blutterings from the boom and all the gallows birds in Aranapogue, so Silvestrious, near the Queen's Colleges in 1132 Bryan or Bride Street, behind the Century Man on the door. And then again, they used to give the grandest, glorious, panquost, universal, howl-mouther Hibbert lectures of anarchiquy out of doxarchology. Hello, Hibernia, from sea to sea, Matt speaking, according to the picture's postcard, from Saxon Grammaticals in the Latimer Roman history, of Latimer repeating himself, from the Viceroy of Lord Hugh, the Lacey Tenant, till Buckley shuts the Rajan Garachnal, and Regnum Rockery Roundup, Marcus Lyons speaking, to the oceanfuls of collegians green and high classes and the poor scholars and all the old Trinitarian senate and saints and sages and the Plymouth brethren droning along, Peensanzangen, and nodding and sleeping away there like forget-me-nots in her obedient service round their 12 tables per pioja at Pulchaboyas in the 4 Trinity colleges for earners you learning and grow back of Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connaught. The 4 grandest colleges suffered the matter of Erin, of kill or cure and kill them all and kill each other and kill Kelly on the floor, where their role was to rule the round roll that Rollo and Rollo rolled round. Those were the grandest gynae histories. Lucas calling, hold the line, in the Jane's Danes Lady Anders Daughter University, for all acquaintance sake. This Unitarian lady, breathtaking beauty, bam bonniest, lived to a great age at or in or about the late number 1132 or number 1169, bis Fitzmary round, where she was seen by many and widely liked for teaching the Fatima woman history of Fatimilia Familias, repeating herself, on which purposeth of the spirit of nature, as divinely developed in time by Sada to follow me, the past and present. Johnny MacDougall speaking, give me trunks, miss. And present and absent and past and present and perfect, armar virumque Romano. Ah, dear, oh dear. Oh, weep for the hour when evil leaves bower. How it did but all come eddying back to them, if they did but get gaze, gagagnyagnian. To hear him there, hiddling and cuddling her, after the gouty old Galahad, with his peer of Quinifears and his Troad of Thurston so nefarious, from his elevation of 1 yard 132 lines, before the 4 of us in his Roman Catholic arms, while his deep-sea peepers gazed and sazed and days-crazed mazed upon her Dulloch bloon rodoling Oloshin iron bowls, by the Cornelius Nepos, anumque, napu. Que? Quos? Ah, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Bows and braces brythe, when gooses gandered gammon. Ma hazarag dod. It was so scalding sorry for all the whole 2-4 of us, with their familiar making the totin. And Lally, when he lost part of his half a hat, and all belongings to him, in his old futile manner, cape, trowel and drawbreeches, and repeating himself and telling him now, for the sake of Sender's newsletters and the massacre of St. Bryce's, to forget the past, when the burglar he shoved the wretch in churner oil, and contradicting all about Lally, the ballast master of Gosterstown, and his old fellow the Lagoner in the Loch Lane lighthouse, earing his wick with a pierce of railing, and ligging hick with his ladder up, and that old time-turner and his Saturday early cloudsing, the old crony on his skelly, with the leather belly full of nelts, full of kelts, full of lightweight belts, and all the bald rakes or ever he had up in the boreen off Artsy Chick's road with Moles and Mamulla Molati, the man in the Oran Mosque, and the old folks at home, and Dignan and the Pole and the Grand Confariation, as per the Cabbanger's richest store of the filest archives, and he couldn't stop laughing over Tom Tim Tarpey, the Welshman, and the 4 middle-aged widowers, all nangles, sangles, angles, and wangles. And now that reminds me not to forget the 4 of the Welsh waves, leaping, laughing in their lumbag walk, over old Battleshore and the Adelconch in their half-a-Roman hat, with an ancient Greek gloss on it, in Chichester College auction, and, thank God, they were all summarily divorced 4 years before, or so they say, by their dear poor she-husbands in dear byword days, and never brought to mind to see no more the rainwater on the floor, but still they parted, raining water laughing, per nupita privius only terpere, on the best of terms, and be forgot, whilk was plainly foretook by their old pilgrim cockle song, or they were singing through the wettest Indies. As I was going to bury me carrot, we fell in with a lout by the name of Peebles, as also in another place by their orthodox proverb, so there was said thus, that old fellow knows milk, though he's not used to it latterly. And so they parted, in document number 2. Aye, aye, the good go and the wicked is left over. As evil flows, so evil flows. Aye, aye. Ah, well, sure, that's the way, as the holy maid of Cont said to the hairy man of Coombe. For his humble position in advices, woman, squash, part. Aye, aye, by decree absolute. Lucas, and oh, so well they could remember at that time, when Carpery of the Gouldfins was in the kingship of Poolland, Mrs. Dowager Justice Squelchman, four-sitter, in her full-bottom wig and beard, Herminia Regina, in or a ring or around about the year of by and disgrace, 1132 or 1169 or 1768 YWCA, at the married male family man's auctioneer's court in Aranacuddle. Poor Johnny of the clan of the Dougals, the poor Scotsman, oh, Hannes, nothing if not amorous dinner forget, so frightened, sweep, on account of her full bottom, undullable atracity, that put the Earl of Mercies on him, and the 4 masters in corps with a hing behanged them, because he was so slow to borstle her schoon for her, when he was grooming her ladyship, instead of back-scratching her mater familias proper, like any old Methodist, and all divorced, and in a sense interdict, in the middle of the temple, according to their dear faithful. And now it was too bad, and stout entirely, all the missicurs. And poor Mark, or Marcus Bowencoat, from the Browns' Barrow in Nolan's land, the poor old chronometer, all persecuted with Ally Croker by everybody, by decree absolute, through Herenzilda, because he forgot himself, making wind and water, and made a Neptune's mess of all of himself, sculling over the Giant's Courseway, and because he forgot to remember to sign an old morning proxy paper, a writing in request to her suit herself, on stamped broninoleum from Romeo to Juliet, before saying his grace before fish, and then and there, and too, there was poor Dian Cassius Pussycombe, all drowned too, before the world and her husband, because it was most improper and most wrong when he attempted to, well, he was shocking poor in his health, he said, with the shingles falling off him, because he, well now, peace is pea to Wedmore, and let not the song go dumb upon your ire, as we say in the spasms of Davies, and we won't be too hard on him as an old Manx Presbyterian. And after that, as red as a Ross is, he made his last will and went to confession, like the general of the Barclayites, at the rim of the rum, on his 2 bare marrow bones, to her worship, his mother, and sister Evangelist Swaney, on Cailkennin Widnight, and he was so sorry, he was really, because he left the booty button in the hansom cab, and now, tell the truth, unfriends never. She was his first Mrs. Duchess, and it was a very pretty peltry, and there were faults on both sides. Well, he attempted, or so they say. And now, forget and forgive, don't we all? And sure, he was only funning with his Andrew Martins, and his old age coming over him. Well, he attempted, or the conarchy, he was tempted to attempt some Hunnish familiarities after eating a bad carp in the rude ocean, and heaven to know, sure, he was dead seasick abed. It was really too bad, for poor old divorced male in the house pays for the dying at the mater Mrs. McCawley's, where at the time he was taying and toying to hold the nurse-tendered hand. Ah, the poor old coax, and count the buttons and her hand, and frown on a bad crab, and dying to remember what dude they were bjorn, and who made a whoa snore. Ah, dear, oh dear, oh dear. And where do you leave Matt Emeritus, the lay chief of Abbot-a-Bishop, and ex-cholad of French and German? Ach, och, they were all so sorry for poor boy Matt in his saltwater hat with the Arran crowns, and his old age coming over him. Well, he attempted, or the conarchy, he was tempted to attempt some Hunnish familiarities after eating a bad carp in the rude ocean, and heaven to know, sure, he was dead seasick abed. It was really too bad, for poor old divorced male in the house pays for the dying at the mater Mrs. McCawley's, where at the time he was taying and toying to hold the nurse-tendered hand. Ah, the poor old coax, and count the buttons and her hand, and frown on a bad crab, and dying to remember what dude they were bjorn, and who made a whoa snore. Ah, dear, oh dear, oh dear. And where do you leave Matt Emeritus, the lay chief of Abbot-a-Bishop, and ex-cholad of French and German? Ach, och, they were all so sorry for poor boy Matt in his saltwater hat with the Arran crown, or she grew that out of too big for him, of or nepos, and his overalls all falling over in folds. Sure, he hadn't the heart in her to pull them up. Poor Matt, the old peregrine matriarch, and a queenly man, the purple blossoming upon them, sitting there the soul of the settlement below ground, for an expiatory rite in postulation of his cause, who shall say, in her beaver bonnet, the king of the Caucasus, a family all to himself, under Gasse, the Misseltacles on his multilingual tombstone, like Naveliki Carmen, and she due to kid by sweet pea time, with her face to the wall, in view of the poorhouse, and taking his rust in the ox sight of iron, under all the auspices, amid the rattle of hailstorms, callow spinthio chromato creening, with her ivy-clad hood, and gripping an old pair of curling tongs, belonging to Mrs. Duna O'Cannell, to blow his brains with, till the heights of New Ireland heard the Bristol hut, with his can of tea and a purse of Alfred cakes from Anne Lynch, and 2 cuts of Shackleton's brown loaf and dillisk, waiting for the end to come. Gordon Hayland, when you think of it, the mirth of dither, oh, it was too bad entirely, all devoured by active parliament, laudability, of woman's squelch, and all on account of the smell of Shackleton, and Scratchman and his mouth-watering, acid and alcoholic, signs on the salt, and so now pass the loaf for Christ's sake. Amen. And so, and all. Matt and loaf. So that was the end, and it can't be helped. Ah, God be good to us. Poor Andrew Martin Cunningham. Take breath. Aye, aye. And still and all at that time of the Dinas days of old Conning Sotterick Sulkenboard and Bargo Muster Bart, when they struck coil and shock haunts in old Hungerford on Mudway, where first I met the old Portrick flied from me, and the Finnan Haddies, and the Noel sharks, and the Muckstails turtles, like an acoustic potash and grease super bullion, and how he poled him up his bucket of water, and got big buzz for his name in the Airweek's honours from home, colonies, and empire. They were always with assisting grace, thinking up and not forgetting about shims and shawls week in all land zine, up their 4 hosen bands, that were 4 up beautiful sister misters, now happily married unto old Gallstoneberry. And there they were always counting and contradicting every night as early the lovely mother of Periwinkle Buttons, according to the latter part of their anachronism, up 1, up 2, up 1, up 4. And after that, there now she was, in the end, the dearie, soul powder and all, the Butte 4 sisters, and that was her Mudhen Republican name, right enough, from Alum and Oves, and they used to be getting up from under, in their tape and straw garlands, with all the worries awake in their hair at the Kookaburra bell, ring, ring, all wrong inside of them. Come in, you lazy louse. All inside their poor old Shandon bell box. Come out to hell, you lazy louts. So frightened for the clang of ore, like knock-knees bumps by the Fisterman Straits, hiss, at all hours every night, on their mistletoes, the 4 old Ulsters, to see was the Transton postscript come, with their oar-cushions under their arms extras, all puddled and mythified, the way the wind wheeled the school around, when nobody wouldn't even let them rusten from playing their gastspiels, crossing their sleep by the shocking silence, when they were in dreams of yore, standing behind the door, or leaning out of the chair, or kneeling under the sofa cover and setting on the soup tureen, getting into their way something barbarous, changing the one wet underdown convibrational bed, or they used to slumper under when hope was there no more, and putting on their half a hat and falling over all synopticals and a panegyric, and repeating themselves like swallowing, like the time they were dodging the talkie cook that chased them. Look, all round the stool, walk everywhere for a jewel, to break fire to all the rancers, to collect all and bits of brown, the ratures development in spirits of time in all fathom of space, and slooping around in a bawneen and bath slippers, and go away to old Patrick and see a Dr. Walker. And after that, so glad they had their night tentacles, and there they used to be, flapping and cycling, and doing a dune loop, panamentically around the waists of the ships, in the wake of their good old Foon again, as tired as they were at their wind's width in the wave's length, the clipper built, and the 5 foremasters, and Lally of the cleft-off Baggadurts, and Roe of the fair cheeks, exchanging fees from host to host, with Anthroposophia, and he selling him before he forgot Isle, after having prealably dephlegmatized his gutter full of throaty frogs, with a lungible fong in his suck-mouth ear, while the deer invoked to the cool and dare by a palpa-brow's lift, left no doubt in his minder, till he was instant, and he was trusting, sister, soul, and brother hand, the subjects being their passion grand. That one fresh from the cow about Annie Many married a maid, and that one too from Engravacan Sagar a booth, a gooth a gave a gothany egg, and the parkside pranks of quality queens Cata after kinne, for Earl Hoovedsoon's choosing, and Huber and Harman, or how when, thee upon thus, I sort of binoculus me most inmost egotum, subconsciously senses upers the deprofundity of multi-mathematical immaterialities, where bejubers in the pancosmic urge the all-immanence of that which itself is itself alone. Here, oh here, caller Erin, exteriorizes on this our here-now plane in disunited, solid, likeward, and gushous bodies, with, science say, peril-whitened, passion-panting, punio-plangent intuitions of reunited selfdom, murky way abstru adim, in the higher dimensional, selfless all-self, theming, narsty, meeting, idoless, and telling Jolly Magolly, dear Master John, the belated dishevelled, hacking away at a parchment pied, and all the other analysts, the steamships, and the ladies foursome, oven for, nethen for, dinkety duck, down a lopping, how long tandem, like a 4-tired schoolmasters, and their pair of green eyes, and peering in, so they say, like the narcolepts on the lakes of Coma, through the steamy windows into the honeymoon cabins on board the big steamadories made by Fumidori, and the saloon ladies' maroon toilet chambers lined over prawn silk, and rub off the salty catara off her windows, and he, listening qua committee, the poor old Quakers open the door to see all the honeymooners and the first-class ladies serious me, alas, spring as you fancy. and sheets far from the lad, courting in blankets and familiars, and she, all improper, in a lovely morning toilet for the rose crumpler, the thrill driver, the science spirer, with that olive throb in his nude neck, and swaying and paying, thanks ever so much for the tiny quote, which sort of made every tingling again so very much more delightfully, and the perfectly sweet of her booty-filly yours under all their familiarities by preventing grace, forgetting to say their grace before Chambadory, before going to boat with the verges of the chapel of the opening of the month of Nemaknatut. So passed the pogue for grace sake. Amen. And all, he, quaking so fright, and she, shaking, aching, aye. For it was then a pretty thing happened of pure diversion mayhap, when his flattering hand, at the just right moment, like perchance some cook of courage might clip the lad on a poot of porridge and shut his duck-house. The vivid girl, deaf with love, sure, you know her, our angel being, one of romance's fadeless wonder women, and sure now, we all know you dote on her, even unto date. With a quee little cree of Joyce's crisis, she reunited their disunited, with reapy leaps to ropey lopes, the dear, oh dears, and the golden importunity of a loofer's leave time, when, as quick as greased pigskin, Amoricus Champius, with one arrogant thrust, drove the massive of virile victory, frish-pissed the both lines of forwards. Hibernia's down, boys, right jing-bang shot into the goal of her gullet. All right. And now, upright and add them. And please be honest, and pull it into yourself, as on man or woman do another. Candidately, everybody. A mo for a mot. Come on, meng and do. There was this, well, you may call her, a strapping modern old ancient Irish princess, so-and-so hands high, such and such paddock weight, in her madapolum smock, nothing under her hat but red hair and solid ivory. Now, you know it's true in your heart of hearts. And a first-class pair of bedroom eyes of most unhomey blue, how weak we are, one and all, the charm of favour's fond consent. Could you blame her, we're saying, for one so-called logical moment? What would you do with that so tiresome old milkless a ram, with his tiresome duty peck and his bronchial tubes, the tiresome old hairy orang-o-gran beaver, in his tiresome old 26 and 6penny shepherds, plods, trousers, and his 30 bob and 9penny tails plus toop? Haga crustion. It were too exceeding, really, if one would's to offer a sulken old Virgil a pinch of hinshit. The mainest thing ever, since Edom was in the bogs novi. No, the dear heaven knows, and the farther the from it, if the whole stole stale misbe told, whoever the culpable, and whatever the purpose was, the two owned together, and giving them host passionable weathers. They were doing a lally, a lolly, a dither, a dether, one lily, two dather, three lily, four dother. And it was a fiveful moment for the poor old time-tatters, tick-tacking and tink the count, till the spark that plugged spared the chokey he gripped, and, volatile volupty, how breathed are thy longings. They could hear, like a lisp lapsing, that was her night of the truth thong flipping out of her chapel yosi, after where he had gone and pulped the questioned plop. No, it was too truly terrific, the mummerloob jubes. And then after that they used to be so forgetful, counting mother peribots, up one, up four, to member her beautiful modern maiden name for overflowing by the dream of woman the onirist in 40 lands. From Greg and Doug on poor Greg and Matt and Mar and Lou and Joe, now happily buried, our four. And there she was, right enough, that lovely sight enough, the girleen born a store, as for days galore of planks de Gregory. Eggery. Or bunk it not, or win. Aye. But sure, that reminds me now, like another Thelma story repeating herself, how they used to be in lethargy's love at the end of it all, at that time up, always, tired and all, after doing the mouse work and making it up, after their community singing up the top loft of the voice box of Mamalujo, like the senior follies at Murther McGree's, squatting round 2 by 2, the 4 Confederates, with Caxton's the coastworn, up the wet air register in Old Man's House, Millennium Road, crowning themselves in laurely branches, with their cold knees and their poor up quadrupeds, all asleep and all dolled up for their blankets and materny mufflers and plimsolls, and their bowl of brown shackle and milky and Botterham cloths, a potion apiece, a piece a portion, a lep a lip, a lop a lap, for a cup of kindness yet, with whole take hand and nurse and only touch of it, a lovely monkey bone, and perk smell and wait the pinch and prompt poor Marcus Lyons to not be heeding the skillet on for the life of Gus's, but to pass the teeth for choke's sake, mensch. When it so happened they were all sycamore, and by the world forgot, since the Flemish whoopie cough, for all a possible, after ate a bad cramp and Johnny Magories, and back scrat the poor bed sores and the farthing dip their cascal pandle of magnanausium, and read a letter or two every night before going to Dodo's sleep a trance with their catkins coifs, in the twilight a capital letter, for further auspices on their old 1-page codex book of Old Year's Eve, 1132 MMLJ, old style, their Shankus Moore by his fellow girl, the Mrs. Sheemans, in her summer seal house ensemble, with the caracal broadtail, her totem in tutu, final buff new meal edition in the regatta covers, obtainable from the author, for to regal their raves by incubation, and lally through their gangrene spentacles, and all the good or they did in their time, the rigorists, for roe, and o multnary a conry ap mull, or lap ap morion, and buffler ap Matty McGregory, for Marcus on Podex by Daddy Dwyer, old bag of broth, beeves and scullogues, churls and vassals, in same, sept and severalty, and one by one, and sing a mamalujo. To the heroist champion of Erin and his Bracelanders, and Gowan, Gowan, and gone. And after that now, in the future, please God, after non-penal start, or repeating ourselves, in medios loquos, from where he got a useful arm, busy on the touchline, due south of her western shoulder, down to death and the love embrace, with an interesting tallow complexion, and all now united, sans familias, let us ran on to say Oremus prayer and Ho me sweet homely, after fully realizing the gratifying experiences of highly continental evanements, for mater and pater to temple and eslap, for old acquaintance, to Peregrine and Michael and Farfassa and Peregrine, for navigants et peregrinantibus, in all the old imperial and Finnegans Sea, and for vogue a wallow to a Miss Yis, you fascinator, you, sing a love steamadorian to ladies' eyes, here's Trix and Dulcie, delightfully ours, in her doty, ducky little blue, and roll his hoop, and how she ran, when wit won free, the dimply blissed and awfully bucked, right glad we never shall forget, though the days is gone, still they loves young dreams, and old Luke with his kingly leer, so well worth watching, and Shankus Moore, possessed of evident notoriety, and another more of the big-timers, to name no others, of whom great things were expected in the filming department, for the lives of Lazarus and all Luke Zine, and she, hail her cob, her cohin, or sahehet, on the praise of a whole Shanghai. Here, oh here, Iseult la Belle, Tristan, sad hero, here. The lambig drum, the lombog reed, the lumbag fifera, the limibag brazenaise. Anno Domini Nostri Sancti Jesu Christi, 999 million pounds sterling in the blue-black bowels of the Bank of Ulster. Braw bawbies and good gold pounds galore, my girleen, a Sundale pranked thee finely. And no damn lout'll come courting thee, or by the mother of the Holy Ghost there'll be murder. Oh, come all ye sweet nymphs of Dingle Beach to cheer Bryna Bride Queen from Sybil surf riding, in her curra of shells of daughter of pearl, and her silvery monblue mantle round her. Crown of the waters, brine on her brow, she'll dance them a jig and jirt them fairly. Yet why would she bide with sig sloomy sides, or the grogram grey barnacle gander? You won't need be lonesome, Lizzie, my love, when your beau gets his glut of cold meat and hot soldiering, nor wake in winter, window Macree, but snore sung in my old Balbriggan surtout. Wisha, won't you agree now to take me from the middle say of next week on for the balance of my days for nothing? What? As your own nurse tender? A power of high steppers died game right enough, but who a cushler'll beg coppers for you? I tossed that one long before anyone. It was of a wet Good Friday, too, she was ironing, and, as I'm given now to understand, she was always mad gone on me. Grand goose greasing we had entirely, with an all-night eider-down bed picnic to follow. By the cross of Cong, says she, rising up Saturday in the twilight from under me, Mick, Nick the Maggot, or whatever your name is, you're the most likeable lad that's come my ways yet from the barony of Bournemore. Matt hate you, Mark hate you, Luke hate you, John hate you. Haw! And still a light moves along the river, and still the mermen ply their keg. Its pith is full, the way is free, their lot is cast. So, to John for a John, John a James, let it be. 3. Hark! 12, 2, 11, cater 10, it can't be. Sax. Hork. Pedwar, pemp, fifey, tray, it must be. 12. And low stole all the stillness, the heartbeats of sleep. White fogbow spans, the arch embattled, mark as capsule. The nose of the man who was naught like the mesos. It is self-tinted, wrinkling, ruddled. His cap is a gorse-cone. He am Gascon titubante of tegmine subfagi, whose fixtures are mobiling so wobbling before my remembrance. She, exhibit next, his Anastasia. She has prayings in low delf. See here, green egg brooms. What named blow-toothed man is yon who stares? Gugurtha, he has Becco of wild Hindigan. Oh, he hath hornhide. And this now is for you, Pensée, the most beautiful of women, of the Weilchen Wilder. She would kids to my vault of my palace, with obsidian luppers, her arl in her dove's suckling. Apagemonite, come not near. Black, switch out. Methought, as I was dropping asleep some part in non-land of where's pleased, and it was when you and they were we, I heard at 0 hour, as 'twere the peal of vixen's laughter, among midnight chimes from out the belfry of the cute old speckled church, tolling so faint a good man true, as knighthood's unseen violet rendered all animated Great British and Irish objects non-viewable to human watchers, save 'twere perchance anon some glistery gleam darkling adown surface of a fluvial flow, as again might seem garments of laundry, reposing a lee-sward close at hand in full expectation. And as I was jogging along in a dream, as dozing I was dawdling, methought broad tone was heard, and the creepers and the gliders and flivers of the earth breath, and the dance tongues of the wood fires, and the hummers in their ground, all vociferated, echoating, Sean, Sean, post the post, with a high voice, and oh, the higher on high, the deeper and low. I heard him so, and lo, meseemed somewhat came of the noise, and some who might move all mock. Now 'twas as clump, now mayhap, when look was light, and now 'twas as flasher, now more'n as the glow. Ah, in unlitness 'twas, in verisimilitude, bless me, 'twas his belted lamp, whom we dreamt was a shadow, sure, he's light-sized the lado. Blessed moments, O Romans, he's growing to stay. Ah, he who so swayed a will-o'-the-wisp before me, hand propped to hand, prompt side to the frost, dressed like an earl in just the correct wear, in a classy McFree's coat of far superior ruggedness, indigo braw, tracked and tramped, and an Irish ferrier collar, free-swinging with mere swan lacers from his shoulthern, and thick welted brogues on him, hammered to suit the Scots' most publican climate, iron heels and sparable soles, and his jacket of Providence well-provided woolies, with a soft rolling lisp of a lapel to it, and great sealing wax buttons, a good helping bigger than the slots for them, of 22-carat Krasnopopsky red, and his invulnerable burlap waistcoat, and his popular choker, to magnum setti and forte, and his loud boheme toy, and the Damascus overshirt he sported inside, a star-spangled zephyr with a decidedly surpliced, crinkly-doodle front, with his motto through dear life embroidered over it in peas, rice, and yeggy yolk, or for royal, am for male, R.M.D., hard cash on the nail, and the most successfully carried jiggot turnips now you ever. What a perfect crease! How absolutely curse, breaking over the ankle and hugging the shoe heel. Everything the best. None other from... Ah, then, may the turtle's blessings of God and Mary and Haggis Patrick and Huggis Bridget be soup tumbling all over him. Other than... And may his 100,000 welcome stewed letters, relayed wand post-chased, multiply, I faith, and plultiply. Sean himself. What a picture primitive. Had I the concordant wise heads of Messrs. Gregory and Lyons, alongside of Dr. Tarpey's and I dare say the Reverend Mr. MacDougall's, but I, poor ass, am but as their 4-part tinkler's donkey. Yet methought Sean, holy messenger angels, be uninterruptedly nudging him among and along the winding ways of random ever. Sean, in proper person, now may all the blue-black sliding constellations continue to shape his changeable timetable, stood before me. And I pledge you my agricultural word, by the 160 odds rods and cones of this even's vision, that young fellow looked the stuff, the belle of Bowes Walk, a prime card if ever was. Pip? Now, without deceit, it is hardly too much to say he was looking grand. So fired smart in much more than his usual health. No mistaking that beamish brow. There was one for you that ne'er would nunch with good Duke Humphrey, but would ate through the months without a sign of an air in him, and then, otherwise rounding, forail to the lees of Traro. Those Jehovial eye-glances, the heart of the rule, and hit the hen-coop. He was immense, topping swell, for he was after having a great time of it. A 24 hours every moment matters most sight in a porterhouse, Scott Frank, if you want to know St. Lozenge of tools, the wheel of fortune. Leave your clubs in the hall and wait on yourself. No chucks for walnut ketchups, lays and biz and chutney graspis. The house, the once queen of Bristol and Balrothery, twice admired because her front door looked up Dason Street, where, in the side of lovely eyes, while his knives of hearts made havoc, he had recruited his strength by meals of spadefuls of mounded food, in anticipation of the feast of table napkins, constituting his 3-partite pransipal meals plus a collation, his breakfast of first, a bless us o' blood and thirsty orange next, the half of a pint of bacon with new-laid googs and a segment of rice-plummy padding, met of sundersuga, and some cold forsoken steak petrified from the bat-black night o'erflown. Then, without prejuice to victuals, came along merendally his stock-pot dinner of a half a pound or round steak, very rare, belongs best from Port Arlington's butchery, with a side of ricey peasy and Corkshire à la mélange and bacon with a little marpleach, a pair of chops, and thrown in from the silver grid by the proprietoress of the roastery who lives on the hill, and Gaulish gravy and pumpernickel to Walpop, and a gorger's bulby onion, margaretta, magarastic and eater, and as well with second course, and then, finally, after his avalanche o'clock snack at Apple Reds or Kitsy Bratton's, of saddlebag steak and a bother him with her old Phoenix porter, Gister Gwen his whistle, and Praties sweet and Irish too, and mock gurgle to whistle his way through for the swallowing, soup by soup, and he getting his tongue around it, and Boland's broth broken into the bargain, to his regret his soupe avec nightcap, vitilusset, a carousal consistent with second course ale and bacon, the rich of, with broad beans, hig, steak, hag, pepper, the diamond bone, hotted up Tim Tom, and while 'twas after that he scoffed a drakeling, snuggily stuffed, following cold loin of veal, more cabbages, and in their green free state a cluster of peas, suppositorily petty last. P.S. but a finger hot of Rhine Geneva to give the Paxcombe spirit a tutu. Dryly thankful. Burrard and dulce and Tipperary jam, all free of charge, a man and the best of wine avec. For his heart was as big as himself, so it was, aye, and bigger, while the loaves are a-flowering in the nightingale jugs. All St. Gillian's of Berry, hurrah there for Toby's, Mavro Daphne, brown pride of our custard house cave, amiable with repastful, cheer us graciously, cheer us. Ever of thee, Anne Lynch, he's deeply dreaming. Hosanna, tea is the highest for all lang eternity. Thus, thicker will he grow now, grew new, and better on butter and butter, at the sign of Mistress Van Hungrig. However, mind you, knuckling down to nouritures, where they minuli some ham and jaffas, and I don't mean to make the ingestion for the moment that he was guilty of gulpable gluttony as regards chewable boltaballs, but beastings be beastings, and upon the whole, when not off his oats, given pre-love appetite and post-love pricing, good coop, good cheap, were it Thermidor oakst, or Floreal May, while the whistling prairial roysters play, between gormandizing and gourmeteering, he grubbed his tuck all right, dies moregos. Every time he was for doing dirt to a meal, or felt like a bottle of Ardelawn, along with a smack of lekker bis of a well-dressed tortor. Though his net entrance white weighed naught but a fly-blow to his gross and gants after-dew poise. And he was so jarvy jaunty with the romp of a schoolgirl's completion, sitting pretty over his Oyster Monday print face, and he was plainly out on the ramp and mash, as you might say, for he spoke. Overture and beginners. When lo, whish, oh wish, me saw me streamed, as the green to the gred was flown, through depths of darkness, green grown deeper, I heard a voice, the voice of Sean, vote of the Irish, voice from afar, and cert no pure a poor palestrine ever chanted panangelical mid the clouds of Tues Petrus, not Michaeline Kelly, not Mara O'Mario, and sure, what more numerous italicus ever raw-sucked frish wove in urinal, a breeze to Iverzone, or the bros zousing sea, from Inchigila called away, how it's aspired, more poke, to scented nightlife, as softly as the lofty Marconi masts from Clifton, sow open tireless secrets, move port, to Nova Scotia's listing sister ones. Tube. His hand palm lifted, his hand shell cupped, his hand sign pointed, his hand heart mated, his hand axe risen, his hand leaf fallen. Helpsome hand that wholemost heals. What is het holy? It jested, and it said, Allo, alas, Aladdin a mobus, does she lag soft fall means rest down? Sean yawned, as his general address rehearsal, that was ante-pro previous days, pigeons in a pie, with rough dough for the carrier, and the hash-say of overguest and plus, the Tuesday's champagne in his head, with the memories of the past and the hicknunks of the present, embellishing the musics of the futures from Miccaroni's band, addressing himself ex alto, and complaining with vocal discontent it was so close as of the fact that rag was up, and of the briefs and bill passes, a house full of dead heads, of him to dye his petticoats, to mourn his hesternmost earning, his bawd in the swelth of his fate, as, having moistened his manducators upon the quiet, and scooping molars and grinders clean with his two forefingers, he sank his hunk down out to rest at once. Exhaust as winded hair, utterly spent, it was all he could do, disgusted with himself that the combined weight of his tons of Iseults was 100 man's mass too much for him. Upon the native heath he loved, covered knee-high with virgin bush, for who e'er trod sod of Erin could ever sleep off the turf. Well, I'm liberally dished seeing myself in this trim. How all too unworthy am I, a mere mailman of peace, the poor loused haste-hater of the first degree, the Principate of Candia, no legs and a title, for such eminence, or uncro promenade rather, to be much more exact, as to be the bearer extraordinary of these post-too-many missive on his Majesty's service, while me and yous and them were extending us after the pattern of reposiveness. Wae is me, ye is ye. Aye, the might have been mair canny, which bit his mirth too early or met his birth too late. It should have been my other, with his like name, for he's the head, and I'm an ever-devoting fiend of his. I can seize to mirror into's days of yore, when we lophobes doth occur. Those semble Simon Pumpkill Pieman years. We shared the twin chamber, and we winked on the one wench, and what Sim sobs to die, I'll reeve to marry, for 'twill be, I have hopes of, Sam Dizier's feast. Tune in, tune on, old tie, hi, I'm thine hourglass. Behold, he looks rather thin, imitating me. I'm very fond of that other of mine. Fish hands McSorley, Alien, Obsequies, Banzai, Isaac Eggery's ass. We're the music hall pair that won the Swimyees Blathers at the Guinness Gala at Baden-Ivor. I ought not to laugh with him on this stage, but he's such a game loser. I lift my disc to him. Brass and reeds, brace and ready. How is your napper handy, and how now does she stand? First, he was living to feel what the eldest daughter she was fancying, and last he was dying to know what old Madre Patriac does be up to. Take this John's Lane in your toasting forge. Shanty and shanty and shanty again, and 12 coolander moons. I'm no helots worshipper, but I revere her. For my own cont, she has studied. Pishis Vendel, or your grace. Fut's drunk of woodendom. But Gemini, he's looking frightfully thin. I heard the man shinging in the pantry bay. Down among the dustbins let him lie. Ear, not I, for I'm at the heart of it. Yet I cannot on my solemn merits as a recitativa recollect ever having done of anything of the kind to deserve of such. Not the fullest of a nation, nor by a long trot. I just didn't have the time to. St. Anthony guide. But have we until now ever besought you, dear Sean, we remembered, who it was, good boy, to begin with, who out of symphony gave you the permit? Goodbye now, Sean replied, with a voice pure as a church mode, in echo right dainty, with a good Catholic tug at his cocoa moss candy lock, a foretaste in time of his cabbageous brain's curly flower. Atio caro, come star oggi, signor moro mio? Greet thee, good? How are them, Columbuses? Lord have mustard on them. Fatiguing, very fatiguing. Hobo's horn knees, and the curvature of my spine. Pomir me. My heaviest crux and dairy lot it is, with a bed as hard as the thinkamuddles of the Greeks, and a board as bare as a Roman altar. I'm off rabbited kitchens and relief porringers. No later than a very few fortnights since I was meeting on the Thinker's Dam with a pair of men out of Glasshouse, whom I shuffled hands with, named MacBlacks. I think their names is MacBlakes, from the Headfire Clump, and they were improving me and making me belike no 5-hour factory life with insufficient emollient and industrial disabled for them that day o' gratises. I have the highest gratification by announcing how I have it from who but Hagios Colleen Killer's prophecies. After suns and moons, dews and wettings, thunders and fires, comes sabotage. solvitur palum ballando, til vido, adie. Then we explained, salvatur ambly andi, you possibly might be so by order? Forgive me, Sean repeated from his liquid lips. Not what I wants to do a strike of work, but it was condemned on me promiscuously by hierarch books and chief overseer cooks in their Eusebian concordant homilies, and there does be a power coming over me that is put upon me from on high out of the book of breathings, and so as it is becoming hereditary, I have, of course, nothing in view to look forward at, unless it is swan and beating the blind quarters out of my old fellow's orologium olossolorium. A bad attack of maggot it feels like. 'Tis tropy, custodian said. Almost, might I say of myself, while keeping out of crime, I am now becoming about fed up, be-going circulating about them new hikers' highways, like them nameless souls, hurt and scorned and grizzled all over, till it's rusty October in this bleak forest, and was veribly complussed by thinking of the crater of some noted volcano, or the Dublin River, or the Cachalot trout subsidity as a way out, or to isolate I from multiple me's on the spits of Lumbage Island, or bury myself, clogs, cool cellar and all, deep in my wine upon pontine, unless Morris's colt could help me, or the gander may be at 49, as it is a tithe fish, so it is. This pig's stomach business, and where on dearth or in the miraculous medal of this expending omniverse to turn since it came into my hands, I am hopeless off course to be doing anything concerning. We expect you are, honest Sean, we agreed, but from franking machines limericked, that in the end it may well turn out we hear to be you, our belated, who will bear these open letters. Speak to us of Emilia. As, Sean replied patly, with Tootlepick tact too, and a down of his dampers, to that I have the gum power, and by the benison of Barb, that is a lock to say with everything, my beloved. Would you mind telling us, Sean, honey, beg little big more boy, we propose to such a dear youth, where mostly are you able to work? Ah, you might. Whimper, and we shall. Here, Sean replied, while he was fondling one of his cow-heel cots. There's no Sabbath for nomads, and I mostly was able to walk, being too soft for work proper, 60-odd Eilish miles a week, between 3 masses a morn and 2 chaplets at eve.